Have you ever wondered about the mind-bending mysteries that challenge our understanding of the world? We're about to dive into a fascinating journey of paradoxes that will make you question everything. From puzzles that seem true but are actually false, to riddles that challenge our initial beliefs, and mind-boggling questions that defy logic itself. These paradoxes are more than just brain teasers. They reveal the very limits of our thinking. So, are you ready to explore the unresolvable, the intriguing, and the mind-bending paradoxes that leave us in awe? Let's begin. Whenever we try to understand something using clear and consistent ideas and reasoning, but no matter how hard we try, we can't make sense of it, we come across something called a paradox. These are unusual situations where we think we know clashes with what we don't know, and things seem confusing and strange. Paradoxes aren't just riddles or puzzles that challenge our minds. They can also help us learn important things about how we think and what our limits are. The word paradox comes from a Greek word that means different from what we think. Nowadays, we use this term in many areas like literature, math, science, philosophy, and more. A paradox happens when you start with some facts that you believe are true and follow them using logical thinking, but the result is something that seems false, impossible, or just doesn't make sense. But not all paradoxes are the same. There are different types. A philosopher and logician named Willard Van Orman Quine has sorted them into 3 categories. To explain the first category of paradoxes, let's look at a famous ancient puzzle known as the arrow paradox. This puzzle is about an arrow in flight, and it might seem like the arrow is not moving at all. The thinker Zeno argued this by saying that at each tiny moment in time, the arrow is stuck in one place, not going anywhere. Zeno believed that because of this, the arrow never really moves at all. But in reality, we know that arrows do move. This kind of puzzle is called a false paradox. It seems true when you look at it a certain way, but that way of thinking is actually wrong because it's missing important information. In the case of the arrow paradox, the wrong idea is that time can be divided into tiny moments with no time passing in them. This doesn't make sense because time always has some small amount of time passing in each moment, so the paradox can be resolved by understanding that time is infinitely divided into tiny moments each with a bit of time passing. Next, Zeno's definition of motion is not quite right. He thinks of motion as happening in tiny, separate moments where something doesn't move. But real motion means something is in different places at different times. Zeno's arrows makes us wonder about time, but if we look at it from a physics perspective, with the right information, we can see that the paradox isn't true. This falls into the category of false paradoxes as explained by Quine. Paradoxical paradoxes are a bit tricky. They seem false at first, but that's because they challenge our initial feelings. Let's take Bertrand Russell's barber paradox as an example. Imagine a town with just one barber. This barber shaves men who don't shave themselves. Sounds simple, right? But here's the twist. There can't be a barber like that. It may sound strange, but it's true, making it a paradoxical paradox. Think about this. Does the barber shave himself? If he doesn't, then he belongs to the group he shaves, as he shaves those who don't shave themselves. But if he's in that group, he shaves himself. Now that creates a problem because the barber is supposed to shave only those who don't shave themselves. So we end up with a big contradiction. It shows that such a barber can't exist. The important thing about paradoxical paradoxes is not just a contradiction itself. It's that when we think about it, we realize that something we thought was simple turns out to be logically impossible. The last group is what he calls antinomy. This is probably what we think of when we hear the word paradox. These are paradoxes that end up with strange or impossible results even when we use the right information and logic. They break their usual rules of logic and thinking. Some of them don't seem to have any solution, no matter what we try. They can be as short as a few words like this. This statement is false. The simple sentence messes up our logic. If it's true, then it's false, and if it's false, then it's true. This creates a never-ending problem with no clear answer. Another example is a statement, "There is no truth," which is also self-contradictory. If there's no truth, then the statement can't be true, so it must be false. But if it's false, then there's truth and the statement is true. However, if the statement is considered true, it leads to a situation where there can be no truth, and this cycle of being true and false continues. Other complicated antinomy paradoxes like the Fermi paradox show a conflict between the strong likelihood of advanced extraterrestrial life in the galaxy in the absence of any evidence of it. Another example is the faint young sun paradox, which highlights the contradiction between scientific beliefs that the sun's early output should have been weaker in the presence of liquid water and life on Earth at that time, which would be impossible with a weaker sun. There are also puzzles related to the origins of the universe, such as the question of why something exists rather than nothing, which seems incredibly difficult to answer in a way that makes sense. The way we experience things as conscious beings has some features of a tricky puzzle. We're talking about how the brain's activity makes us feel and think. It's hard to find an answer to this question. These puzzles are like deep questions about our existence, starting from the beginning of the universe down to our very thoughts. They might be the most challenging puzzles in the history. People like Zeno from 400 BC had similar puzzles, but they turned out not to be as impossible as they seemed. We now understand why Zeno's math was wrong. It's reasonable to think that the same might happen with some of the puzzles we face today. However, it might be overly optimistic to believe that we'll solve all these puzzles and not encounter new ones. This could create a never-ending cycle of questions. It makes it hard to find a clear answer to these tricky problems. Solving any puzzles comes at a cost, and sometimes we need to change our way of thinking. Our current knowledge might be incomplete, of our ability to think about the reality might have some flaws. For example, think about this statement is false. It's a puzzle in itself. What could be missing to solve these tricky problems or those puzzles related to how we see things? Some of these tricky situations might be more like problems in our brains and how we talk rather than just missing information. There's a famous quote that says, when we can't talk about something, we should stay quiet. Even though our brain is really amazing, it can only see a tiny bit of all the different kinds of light, hear a small range of sounds, and it only knows what it thinks. It's smart, though. These tricky situations, at least some of them, push the boundaries of what our minds can understand. It's like we're standing on the edge of our understanding trying to figure things out in the big foggy area. These tricky situations make us keep exploring and learning. But some problems might be so hard that we can never find answers or even see what's causing the trouble. Maybe these super hard problems don't even exist at all. And if it's possible that all these tricky situations are just mistakes we make, we can fix them. Or maybe it's the opposite, and everything is confusing and we make up the answers that sound right. We might never really know for sure. In the end, it's kind of strange that we can make sense of things, and yet there are always these puzzling problems that we can solve. As we conclude this journey through the enigmatic world of paradoxes, we're left with a profound sense of wonder and humility. Paradoxes are a testament to the complexity and limitations of our human understanding. Now we must ponder, what is the ultimate significance of these paradoxes and our quest to comprehend the universe and our place within it? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.